Welcome to the Partnering for Sustainability podcast. Fulfilling a future where life is on and sustainability takes top priority is simpler than you think. When we come together, join forces, and collaborate, we can achieve greatness. The time to act is now. Combined, we can realize a truly inspiring and revolutionary future.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I'm Rohan Kelkar. I'm the EVP for Global Power Products Division at Schneider Electric. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by IDC analyst Katja Grimme. Thank you for making the time for us. Could you please introduce yourself, Katja?
Hello, Rohan. Yes, of course. Thank you for the invitation to be a part of this podcast series. I just joined IDC Europe very recently as the research lead for the EMEA Sustainable Strategies and Technology practice. In this practice, we provide insights, data, and frameworks to help technology providers and users understand how technology can be an enabler to achieving sustainable development goals. In fact, I've been an analyst and strategy consultant for over 20 years. And since over 4 years, I've been focusing on the intersection of digitization on the one hand and sustainability on the other hand. And it's glad to be here today.
Thank you, Katja. And it's great to bring your experience into this really important topic. In our last podcast, we discussed why sustainability is so important. So today I'd like to talk about what it means from a business opportunity perspective. If you take a simple example, 5 years ago, there were probably 200 companies that had clear, quantified ESG pledges. Today, it's 5x, about 3,500 companies. So clearly, the momentum and the need or the importance is echoing across the world. In the past, legacy manufacturing practices, they prioritized cost, which meant creating extremely long supply chain, moving products halfway, sometimes all the way across the world, with really little focus on the environment. So as a result, today we are in a place where the world is going to produce 27 billion tons of solid waste by 2050. And while sustainability strategies are often cited as too expensive, the truth is that the corporations that will invest in these strategies will outperform the peers. And business will be the greatest sustainability driver and can significantly contribute to thwarting climate change. So I think of it to drive the business of sustainability, really three angles. It's value, it's technology, and then it's scale, and we'll talk about that today. Let's start with value. For me, value creation is a very local and customized proposition. I'll give you a couple of examples. First one being the Netherlands, where the grid, frankly, literally cannot handle any more power generation. So whether it is traditional or it is renewables, really their challenge is to continue their economic growth. They need to find a way to get more electrification without having to add power into the traditional grid. So microgrids there make complete sense. And we have a DC systems business where for DC architectures, we can actually take a further step and drive sustainability even in those microgrids. Now take a look at France, for example, where the government policies are really driving the need for circular economy. One of the products we launched last year is our circular Master Pact MTZ, which is an air circuit breaker. And through our design and manufacturing processes, we're able to deliver the same quality, but for a remanufactured project, where our customers can take advantage of the fact that we have 42% less CO2 emitted, which is around 250 kilograms of CO2 saved. That's like planting 10 trees. That value proposition is very attractive, not only to our clients in the country of France, but also really meets what they're trying to drive with regulations. The way we think about it at Schneider is really three parts. We call it strategize, digitize, decarbonize. It's something that we use internally, but we also work with our clients where it makes sense for them. The idea is simple. Come up with a goal. Make sure that the goal is ambitious, but is achievable. Think about how you're going to measure that goal. Digitization really helps you with measuring that goal and also measuring the progress towards that delivering that goal. And usually electrification is an enabler to that measurement. So digitize is number two. And then third is decarbonize, whether it's in your scope 1 and 2 through thinking about your incoming power sources differently, or thinking about your distribution infrastructure, or thinking about your machine operation and really and looking at electrification and trying to simplify and make it more sustainable. Do you see that as well, Katja?
Yes, indeed, this is the case. And the way you describe it is really to see that small steps lead to big results. So let me set a little bit the context that we see through our research. Companies in Europe, and actually elsewhere as well, have recognized that they must assume responsibility for environment and for people. And this responsibility must be activated by embedding sustainability into everything, into strategy, into business decisions, and into operations. Because consumers, investors, business partners, regulators, they're all demanding it. It's now a widely recognized fact that companies that do not have a comprehensive, sustainable orientation will actually not be able to survive in the market in the long term. And in fact, the current energy crisis and the price increases that we're seeing in Europe, they only aggravate the situation even further. So demand is growing for companies to create really action-oriented ESG strategies. And this is due to several interrelated, what we call megatrends. So this is climate change, this is shifting demographics, this is evolving reporting standards, and also growing expectations from customers. Another important factor is access to financing. So investors or lenders increasingly require companies to prove that they are behaving sustainably and that they are not vested in environmentally compromised fields, or if they do, then at least that they have strategic plans in place to reduce these types of activities. So there are a number of external pressures for companies in this. And indeed, at the same time, companies have realized that sustainability also offers significant business opportunities, the same as you have just explained, Rohan. So there are actual incentives for sustainability. And your use cases have already shown that there are savings potentials and benefits, in particular in three areas. First of all, it's energy efficiency through better energy management and the use of renewables. There is, secondly, resource savings by reducing waste, recycling or remanufacturing, and by adopting circular economy methodologies. And that is something which is interesting because in some regions, in India, for example, the reuse of products and materials is actually already common. People don't need encouragement there to reuse. It's kind of part of their culture and their society. So what is needed is to provide the infrastructure to make that possible. And also, this is what we need to figure out and kind of translate or transfer to other geographies as well. So, and the third point is actually minimizing energy bills. So by deploying modern and highly efficient energy infrastructure. And this is, for example, what you illustrated with the example in the Netherlands. Additionally, experience has shown that sustainability initiatives are a great source of innovation for operations improvements and for the development of entirely new business models. And finally, sustainability improves the risk status and the resilience for companies. So by fulfilling regulatory compliance, that improves the risk management. And similarly, transparency and greater control in the supply chain leads to greater resilience for companies. So what does this all show? Actually, sustainability is both a business opportunity and a response to societal and environmental changes. Sustainability is not only mainstream by now, so it's really a must-have, but it's evolving from initially kind of ambitious declarations. So everyone says we will be net zero by 2030 or 2040, further to a development of more holistic strategies with KPIs and milestones defined. IDC survey from a couple of years ago showed actually that 65% of IT executives across European organizations were planning to dedicate between 10 and 50% of their strategic budget to sustainable products and services. This is a significant investment. And the current investment focus is on digital solutions for environmental sustainability. So primarily companies look for technology solutions that help them to achieve their climate goals. So essentially it's decarbonization or carbon emission reduction. So it's the measurement and the monitoring of emissions, the carbon footprint, obviously, initially the scopes 1 and 2, but now increasingly also scope 3, which is a lot more complex. And then technology solutions that help to reduce carbon emissions. That's particularly through energy management. And then in the end, also state-of-the-art and power-efficient IT infrastructure, which is becoming more and more important. So this is the kind of context that we are seeing. And Rohan, I'll put it back to you. What is your thinking, and how is Schneider Electric approaching these types of challenges and opportunities?
Very interesting insights, Katya. Thank you. We talked about value. Let's talk about technology a little bit. As I said, technology is going to be a key enabler for sustainability and the value that we generate through that technology. You mentioned India. I'll give you an example where we recently launched a circular version of our MasterPact MTZ circuit breaker. We launched it in France, where there's not only a huge demand and interest, but also the regulations really embrace something like that. We are enabling through technology our ability to really create this remanufacturing process very efficient, and it enables a faster time to market, 45% less CO2 emitted as a result, highly sustainable. And just to put things in context, it's about a 250 kilograms of carbon, which is about like planting 10 trees saved. So again, it's the right thing to do, but technology enables that. I've got other examples, frankly, the FlexSet switchboard and the Prisma switchboard, which are electrical distribution boards that we have launched both in the UL and the IEC space. They reduce that carbon footprint both through the use of more efficient materials, less copper, but frankly, in some sense, like FlexSet, really changing the point of construction and distribution of that, and really saving on the logistics and the cost of that logistics as an additional value. So these are a couple of examples. Just to put things in perspective, because people say it's still expensive. Think of ROHS, which is the EU directive that was launched, I want to say 10, 12 years ago, restricting the use of things like cadmium in electronic components. 10 years back, it was hard to find a PCB, a board, electronic board, that was compliant. It was very expensive. Today, to find a board that is not RoHS compliant probably costs a lot more and will be very difficult. So scale matters, and with technology, you can actually drive that scale. And once you hit the tipping point, the cost starts to make sense. What are your thoughts, Katya?
Yes, in fact, that sustainability becomes a business opportunity and becomes a kind of like a growth driver or success driver for companies. That is actually supported through various research studies. There was a study conducted by the UN Global Compact and Accenture, and that found that between 2013 and 2019, companies that had a consistently high ESG performance actually enjoyed 5 times higher operating margins and lower volatility than compared to low ESG performance over the same period of time. So similarly, most companies that are more advanced in digitization, for example, deploying data analytics and automated operations, they are performing better at achieving their sustainability goals. And our research has shown that front runners in sustainability see a positive effect on their profitability. So experience has shown that also a strong ecosystem and collaborative approaches generate best results. I know that this is your focus as well, Rohan. How do you work and engage with partners?
It's a very, very important point, because we talked about technology, we talked about value. In the end, to deploy that scale in our electrical distribution framework, we have to work with that entire ecosystem. And that ecosystem consists of, you have starting with distribution, specifiers, design firms, panel builders or panel shops, system integrators. All of them are part of this ecosystem that we really need to enable and drive. Secondly, when you think about pledges by the big Fortune 500 companies, in order for them to deliver their Scope 1, 2, 3 emissions, they need their ecosystem or their supplier network to be able to do it. So while it may not be explicit in terms of requirements, it is increasingly becoming a requirement in order for you to do business with some of your biggest clients. So the way we think about it as the market leader in this electrical distribution partner space, we want to both incentivize, celebrate, and also share best practices with our partner ecosystem. So what we did is we launched our inaugural Schneider Electric Sustainability Awards, Schneider Electric Sustainability Impact Awards, to recognize the positive impact by these partners. Very, very positive feedback from over 100 countries, several thousand partners responding. And we think of it two ways. One is for partners, which is partners who lead the change for themselves and their own operations and decarbonize them, as well as through partners, which is in the end, this ecosystem has to deliver sustainable solutions to support the net zero goals of our end customers. And we recognize partners who've done this by themselves. So it's not just what Schneider does, but what these partners do themselves to help us deliver these two goals. And it's been very, very widely and positively received.
It also illustrates that sustainability pursuit indeed is a journey, or you could even say it's a marathon rather than a sprint. At IDC, we see it confirmed by our research that the partnership approach and effective collaboration really go a long way to help achieve sustainability ambitions. For example, when you're looking at ways to measure and reduce Scope 3 emissions, so these indirect emissions across the life cycle of a product or a service, then it becomes absolutely necessary to collaborate with the relevant partners, both upstream and downstream of this product or services. How do you evolve that partnership approach further at Schneider Electric? I know this is a focus of yours.
I'm going to give you a concrete example, and we actually announced it just this week. And this has to do with the new terminal at the JF Kennedy Airport in New York. This is through a public-private partnership. So you talked about that before in terms of how do we engage some of the private capital. So between Carlyle and Schneider Electric. And the idea is that we are building the first airport transit terminal that is capable of operation off-grid during times of power disruption. That was a critical requirement for the airport operator. We're going to do it through a 11.3 megawatt microgrid deployed over 13,000 solar panels. To do this, again, it's an example of partnership where we are able to deploy private capital. We're going to meet a value proposition and a need for the end user and deliver a sustainable as well as resilient solution. So really being able to check all these things through a unique partnership approach. And frankly, it's a fantastic win. And we will look at being able to use these type of partnerships to scale these efforts in a more significant way going forward. With this, we are at the end of our time today. It's been great to discuss with you, Katya. It confirms what we believe is sustainability is an opportunity for value creation. Technology is a way to enable it. And then the ecosystem of partners is a way to scale. So Katya, I'd like to thank you for this inspiring discussion. And also, I'd like to thank all the listeners that have tuned into this episode of the Partnering for Sustainability podcast series. Talk to you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
This has been our Partnering for Sustainability podcast, brought to you by Schneider Electric. If you enjoyed this episode, you can listen to more, subscribe, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. The content of this podcast is for information purposes only and should not be undertaken as financial, economic, legal, business, tax, or investment advice. The information, statements, views, and opinions should not be construed as the provision of advice by Schneider Electric, or as an offer to buy or sell any products or services, or to make or consider any investment or course of action.